And our government simply just accepted that. And as I'm sure you're aware, and many of your viewers are aware, this is not a one-off and an isolated incident. In fact, this kind of thing happens actually all the time. And, you know, these are our guys. And
And they
as you said,
brag
this is what
about
they.
it. Benjamin Netanyahu is on tape on multiple occasions, but one interview sticks out in my mind that I'm paraphrasing here. But he basically said, we don't care what the Americans feel about any of this. This applies to Canada as well, or anybody in the West, but he was speaking of America, and he said, we don't care what Americans think of this because we have their government by the balls. We own the United States. We own the media. We own the discourse. We own the programming and the gaslighting and the brainwashing. We can deliver whatever message we want to. So, of course, it was an accident. Who's going to say anything? And what happens to them if they say it? Well, then you get put on Michael Rappaport's list and you get canceled from everywhere.
And who cares about JFK? Ben Shapiro would tell you, right? Well, I think the American people would care very much about
60 years ago.
Who cares about JFK? No one really cares about that anyway. But it's so insidious, and it's something I've been kind of exploring and talking about a little bit over my show recently. Is that it's really just there's no other way to put it. It's just malevolent and just kind of evil on a way that I couldn't really even fathom doing. Is that they have identified that one of our biggest strengths, and ultimately also one of our biggest weaknesses, is that our empathy is so strong, our hearts are so big, and our desire to do good and do well and go out in the world and improve things and build things and find bad people, things, monsters, if you will, and fight them and destroy them. That's kind of at the core of who we are. That's why a lot of our myths and stories and things that we like are designed that way. So what they do is they manipulate that and twist that and leverage that so that these people will, enact and enable these kinds of agendas against their own self-interests. Like, for example, if you remember that boy that was washed up dead on a beach somewhere, one of these Syrian refugees or something, and they repositioned him, and it was all very staged and very tried to make it look as sad as possible to elicit the sympathy and the guilt response out of primarily the people and a lot of women in Europe, and logical thinking goes out the window, and it all just becomes, we have to save and help all these people, which is of course a noble thing to want to do. But the reality of it is, and they know what it is that you're going to be flooded with endless millions of people. And now the mayhem and violence in Europe it speaks for itself. And this is something
no different than the tactics that they use to get people, young white men, by the way, to volunteer for the military.
Exactly.
They because we are a good people. We want to go fight for the underdog. We want to go stand up to the bullies. How successful was the messaging when George Bush stood there at Ground Zero with that bullhorn and said, all of these people will hear from us very soon? How successful was the messaging when the recruiters then were posted up inside of these high schools and grabbing 16-year-old kids to get in the delayed entry program and go to the military entrance processing stations and then shipped to Lackland Air Force Base or wherever it was and get ready for war? They were ready. They wanted to go and these people up. And you know what? That is very noble. But unfortunately, you were duped.
Yeah,
I was if there's one class of people that should be so upset and really engaged in this, it's veterans. And veterans should be talking to their fellow veterans. They should be talking to active duty and reserve service members right now, and those, most importantly, white men that are considering becoming a member of the armed forces in their respective country. Who are you really going to war for? You should know this before you sign up.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's one of the biggest problems. I think, I struggled with this certainly because of transitioning on my way out of the military. But I've always been a very curious, introspective kind of guy. I always like to read and talk to people and try to understand things. But that's just not really the nature of a lot of these guys, and they just kind of withdraw. Especially when you leave the military, you lose your support network, you lose access to all the other guys, the people that understand you. And you're thrust out into this world that hates you and doesn't respect you and doesn't understand you. And they're very confused and frustrated and hurt, and they're in pain. And from the whole experience, they don't really understand it. It doesn't really make any sense. And I think a big part of the problem with some of that is you need to understand why you're doing something. You can't just, going to mow your neighbor's lawn because it's, long. You're doing a nice, friendly gesture is one thing, but you're going to go 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and go off to the other side of the world and compete in essentially the murder Olympics and mass killing, enemy combatants and all of this. And you don't even really have a clear understanding as to why that happened or why any of it took place. And you have to live with this for the rest of your life.
And how could they? I mean, with the nature of these forever wars, the people who left Afghanistan, when Biden just whatever what that was. I mean, it was a complete calamity. They were infants when the towers came down on 9/11. How could they have an understanding of what it was that they were fighting for? And even
Yeah,
if they did, it was lies that were told to them by their predecessors.
Yeah, the kids joining the military now are joining. They are old. They're younger than the war is. As you said, I was 15, I think, when that happened, and my mom at the dinner table that night said, "Thank goodness you're too young and your father's too old." Well, she was half right. But I ended up roped up into this. But even more sick and twisted is that they'll turn your own people against you should you say anything. Should you come out and say, you know what, I have questions about this war, and I don't think this makes a lot of sense. And I think that if we're going to be burying our sons and daughters at ages 17, 18, 19, or 30 or 40 or 50, it really doesn't matter. These are our people. These are our family members, people we love, and they're the best people we have because they're the ones that will say, I will protect you. I will get in the way and risk myself to protect you and everyone else from whatever's out there, whatever's aiming to hurt us. They deserve to be honored in this way and know what the truth is so that we know what we're getting into. But instead, we have these massively, popularized and glorified kind of propaganda pieces in video games and movies and stuff to make it, kind of as we touched on earlier, to really prey upon, which is really sick, that instinctive feeling inside of young boys, especially to want to grow up and be not just men, but be good men that protect their people and the things they look up to in their superhero movies and their video games and stuff. This is a real speaks to something ancient and old inside of a man's soul. And instead of directing them into something truly evil, it's they've been bamboozled and hoodwinked into destroying themselves. And then when they come back and look for help, you don't get any. You're actually the problem now. You're a white colonizer, actually, and you're part of white supremacy and all of this kind of stuff. So why don't you just kill yourself? The Canadian government now is handing out, it's called MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot.
Brochures to veterans. California legalized a similar program around the same time as Canada. They're comparatively, in size. I don't know exactly what the size of California is. Canada's about 40 million, 41 million people. We've killed over 70,000 in that amount of time since 2016. We lost 50,000 men in World War II. California, as I believe, has killed about 600 people under a similar program. So we're just, we can't get enough death. We can't get enough of, destroying our own people here. But when I was actually held there, at the customs station, they were clearly reading something. There was a couple of the border station, sorry. They were kind of, back and forth, glancing at each other and reading off of something. And they had some kind of package of information there and the anti-Semitism questions and this and that. And how do you feel about Israel and all this stuff? And I said, what are you reading there? And is it some kind of briefing document on me? And they kind of giggled. And they're like, well, yeah, sort of. And I said, is it from the Canadian Anti-Hate Network? And they said, yes. How do you know that? And well, that is the Jewish power lobby here in Canada that has had government funding and grants. And as you guys are discovering through Musk's investigation of USAID in the States, it's basically just a slush fund for any number of social causes that they want to basically steal U.S. taxpayer money to fund, whatever. I would not be surprised at all to find a similar situation here in Canada with them and many other groups. But that's just how it is here. They have leverage and influence, and they can decide this person, that person doesn't get to be a human being. In fact, an organization we've just founded a year ago is called Second Sons Canada. It's a men's nationalist club.
We got 1 minute left, just so you know.
Sure. Yep, sure. We were just out quickly doing a quick video shoot. We weren't trying to bother anybody. It was not a rally, nothing like this. That didn't stop people from taking pictures and local politicians decrying it as a hate rally of like terrorists. And we've been getting death threats and things like that ever since. This is just the environment they've created. So to call them an anti-hate network, we're here to protect people and all that. The opposite's actually true. They target us and they very much gleefully enjoy the persecution and destruction and any harm that they can cause to people like myself and yours and the people like us.
Imagine if white people just said, you know what, I'm not signing up anymore. Like literally every white person was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. You want to die for Israel? Oh, well then how about it, Jew? Go ahead. Go die for your country. In Occupied, this brilliant film that did wonderfully, one of the things that we hear a rabbi saying, we get other people to go and fight and die for us. Yeah, what if every white man was just like, yeah, no. And the blacks were like, well, we'll go fight for the Jews. Well, then you just tell the blacks about slavery and who brought them here to begin with. And then they might be a little pissed off, and the whole reparations conversation might be a little different as well. All right, anyways, where do people find you? That's what I want to spend the last couple of seconds here.
Sure, thanks, sir. Appreciate it. You can find my social media links and stuff at ragingdissident.com or just my name, jeremymckenzie.ca. It goes to the same website. I've got a Rumble channel and everything else that's on there, Substack and Twitter and all that stuff if you want to follow me there. And I do a podcast a couple of times a week. It's on Rumble, it's on Spotify and Podbean and Apple and all those other kinds of things.
Fascinating guy, great conversation as well. I mean, and really fascinating things have happened to this guy. Jeremy McKenzie, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Yeah, so make sure that you go and you find Jeremy McKenzie wherever you can. Also, you might take interest in, if you have not seen the Richard Leonard show on the Stu Peters Network. Richard is a combat wounded Purple Heart recipient, war veteran. He hosts a show here on the network, and it does really well. It's every weekend, so check out the Richard Leonard show. By the way, if you want to become a supporter of the network, $3 off during the month of April for your first month. To celebrate Easter, I guess that's what Brittany is telling us we're doing now. We're celebrating Easter by giving you $3 off your first month at stewpeters.com. Click on the support subscribe button there or below any one of our Rumble videos. There's a red button called Stew Crew. It's right there. Click it right now, and we'll be right back. I'm going to ask you for your undivided attention because I'm going to tell you about what could possibly be the most important life-saving supplement that I have ever talked about. It's called Cardio Miracle. Each serving of Cardio Miracle has a combination of over 50 high-quality ingredients, including a huge variety of fruits, vegetables, amino acids, and herbs, all of which come together to promote your body's ability to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is so important for heart health. It helps to relax and dilate your blood vessels, which supports blood flow and circulation. And I love that you don't have to take this giant pill to get all of this nutrition. No, Cardio Miracle comes in a powder formula, so it's really easy to mix all day throughout the day into juice or water and take it at any time. That also helps to support mood regulation because it's a neurotransmitter. It's a neuromodulator in the brain. So it can support the release of serotonin and dopamine, both of which are really important and involved in mood regulation. Cardio Miracle also supports mental clarity, sleep quality, energy levels. It can even help with recovery after exercise. Nitric oxide is essential for so many functions in the body, and Cardio Miracle supports the production of nitric oxide, so you get many benefits from just one supplement. Please go to highpowerheart.com. Again, highpowerheart.com. I'm telling you, this could quite possibly be the most important supplement that I will ever talk about. Cardio Miracle. Go to highpowerheart.com.
AirWaterHealing.com is the leading manufacturer in filterless air purification systems. Whether you're dealing with pollen or mold or dust, shedding from your pet or vaccinated neighbors, mRNA spike protein shedding. AirWaterHealing.com has solutions for every scenario at home, at work, or on the go. Breathe with confidence. Don't let your air suck. Rest well knowing that your home is protected 24/7. So now you can get a unit for your home or a portable unit for on-the-go travel. That's airwaterhealing.com. Use promo code STEW for 10% off when you go to airwaterhealing.com.